If there's one thing the history of evolution has taught us, the CIA will not be contained. The CIA breaks free, it expands to new territories, and it crashes through barriers painfully, maybe even dangerously, but, well, there it is. There it is. I'm simply saying that the CIA, finds a way.
Brian, welcome to the show, and it's an honor to have you.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Okay, so tell me just really quickly, like, what's at stake tonight with Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump? This is going to be a big one. You must obviously, since Ukraine is pretty much a CIA cutout, you must obviously know a little bit about what's happening there. What do you expect to go down?
Yeah, 10 plus CIA bases in Ukraine as of this moment. We are all in on this war. President Trump has inherited something that, I think we can all say is a mess. So we are into this, and he's got to find a way to get us out, and he's got to find a way to ensure that the American people get their money's worth that we have invested into that country, but more importantly, bring about peace. Because I think what the White House wants to do is wrap this up and then focus our attention where it should be, and that is either on the homeland or China. And that's what the White House is trying to do. That's what Trump is trying to do with Putin later today. He's going to sit down with Mr. Putin of Russia and figure out what we can do to wrap this up. It's stage one. There are going to be multiple stages here on after to see if we can't get to Zelensky and the Europeans to the table as well. So stage one today.
So, I mean, we're just praying for peace, right? Like, I'm so sick of having my tax dollars drained to go build a road somewhere or build a bridge somewhere while there's a massive pothole on my street that my kids have to drive over every day. It's like Americans are just sick of it, I think, right? And I know that you worked at a clandestine agency and you've got to be outward focused, but in the CIA, no one's going to have any power if internally America collapses, right?
Well, look, the last 6 months of last year, 30,000 drone incursions came across our southern border. 30,000.
Really?
So of that, some number are Mexican cartels. Some are what? Maybe the Chinese, the Russians, probing us from the south. Goodness. So look, there are many reasons why the CIA should certainly be looking externally, but there are internal threats as well. 12.5 million or so, according to the Congressional Budget Office, 12.5 million people in this country now over the Joe Biden era, none of them vetted. Well, that seems like a problem. So you bet the FBI and the CIA might have, external challenges or needs or demands, but the internal challenge is just as real.
Yeah. You wrote about the internal challenges, given some of the bombshell documentation coming out of the CIA and the greater overall intelligence community. You worked for John Brennan, who I find to be just very, in his media hits and stuff, he's just very slithery, very creepy, very strange man. And perhaps you could elucidate for us what that was like working for him. You write that he belongs in prison here, your former boss. Strong words, Brian. Please explain.
Look, so you asked what he's like as a person. Let me tell you about a covert action operation that I briefed him, my team and I, that there was a device that we were going to put inside of a missile, and it was going to explode that missile. Our assumption was there would be a nuclear weapon on top of that missile. It would only explode, it would only trigger if that missile were fired. In other words, tens of millions of Americans were about to be slaughtered by that nuclear weapon. He turned down that operation because he was more worried about that missile exploding in a foreign country where there might be thousands or tens of thousands of people dead there. So he made the choice to protect those people abroad over than people in this country. So that I think gives you a really wonderful window into what kind of man he is. This is not somebody who cares about this country. So I will tell you that is the director of the CIA who was under Obama. He's a Hillary Clinton guy as well. So that gives you a really good sense of who this dude is. Why I think he should rot in prison is very clear. The seditious conspiracy, that is what is very obvious to me, both direct and circumstantial evidence that ODNI Gabbard and CIA Director Ratcliffe and others have exposed with these document reveals. It is very clear that there was a seditious conspiracy. Going back to the summer of 2016, obviously with that Hillary Clinton smear, there was no Trump-Russia collusion. That was obvious. Special Counsel John Durham, documenting that there was no predicate for Crossfire Hurricane. But with these latest reveals over the past month or 6 weeks, what we're seeing very clearly is that even the NSA director raising his hand and saying, wait a minute, you guys are rushing through this intelligence community assessment, ICA, that normally takes 6 months to a year. Barack Obama says he wants it done in 2 weeks. Absolutely unprecedented. And they're not giving the NSA access to the underlying intel. Well, wait a minute. This sounds kind of like Iraq war stuff. How am I supposed to make a determination about Trump-Russia collusion or Putin aspiring to help Trump, the allegation goes, if I can't look at the intel? If I can't make that ultimate judgment? I don't care if it's super top secret stuff. You got to show it to me. I just can't trust you. So that is exactly what James Clapper and John Brennan and ultimately Barack Obama told the then NSA director. That's the latest reveal. Mike Rogers put that down on paper, and it's absolutely shocking. So seditious conspiracy, that's why John Brennan should be in prison. That's why they all should. And at the end of the day, the buck stops with Obama. He ordered all of this, knowing that there was no Trump-Russia collusion. He knew it, and he ordered it anyway.
It's fascinating if you take the names out of it, right? So let's delete the names Obama, Clinton, and Trump, because everybody brings their priors when you put those three in. So if you just put the facts basis down, and you're the expert, but please tell me if I'm right here. A campaign for president pays a man who's on the payroll of a sanctioned Russian oligarch to go to Russian spies to write a dossier of fake disinformation and malinformation in order to pay lawyers to launder that into our federal law enforcement agencies and intelligence agencies. So they're now poisoning the entire well of credible information and then using that information to try and remove the will of the people in our democracy and kneecap a president. Seems like treason to me, man. Like, did I get those details wrong? Like, am I not understanding that? I'm just a simple, I'm just a simple streamer, here.
Well, for a simple guy, you nailed the complicated stuff and you boiled it right on down. That is absolutely correct. You got the facts nailed down precisely. Look, for folks who don't understand a lot about intel, we get all kinds of allegations all of the time. Rumor intelligence, they call it rumint, right? Embassy officers will get this, CIA operations officers abroad. People will email stuff in. So it's not to say that, we don't get stuff that's, really scandalous and we got to investigate it. Yes, we do. We get that rumor from all around the world. Well, it was investigated. The sealed dossier was investigated and it was all garbage, all of it. And yet it was still included in that intelligence community assessment, which is absolutely not how the world of intel works at all. And of course, they included it so they could leak it and destroy the Trump presidency. So you nailed the very complicated story in a very, very simple and straightforward way. It was absolutely treasonous. I call it seditious conspiracy. I don't know what the DOJ is going to call it. That's what I want to focus on because these men under the Obama era absolutely committed horrific crimes. They certainly broke all kinds of internal rules. Ask any CIA guy, not me necessarily, but others as well. They'll tell you the exact same thing. I just had a conversation about 2 days ago with an analyst who was still inside, who saw this email from Mike Rogers saying, wait a minute, 2 weeks, you guys have this ICA done, and I haven't seen the underlying intel. This analyst at the agency who's still there was like, that doesn't happen. That's unprecedented. Very clearly, they were cooking the books, and they were trying to hammer President Trump, who was then president-elect. It's just very clear.
Yeah, I mean, it's all been documented. It's something that we've been speculating for a long time, and now to see it in black and white is overwhelming. It's bewildering, and it's also must be very tragic for you because you're somebody who's devoted. Did you say 10 years of your life to the CIA?
Yep. I started just after 9/11.
Yep. Okay.
About 2 months after 9/11, and I was there through 2015, December 2015.
So
but look, you're right. For a lot of us,
that must be embarrassing for you. I mean, this must be something to continue. Like, I hate being super anecdotal or like talk about people's feelings, but this must really suck to watch this agency that you would have given your life for, right? Because if you're serving in that time period, there's a lot of people that couldn't. There's a lot of life or death situations, frankly, that you're dealing with or perhaps a part of, and to see it used in this manner must be. Really demoralizing.
I lost friends in the war on terror. There are people who should be here who are not. And I'm reminded of the oath that we all took, which is to serve the president and the American people. That was the job. And then to see this go down, you start to ask a lot of tough questions. Well, what was my service really all about? Like, was I on the right side of a lot of issues? Was I part of the good guy team? And I think that's one of the sobering conclusions from this is that not necessarily. I wasn't necessarily. And I will tell you, during the same period, for 20 years, I was a Democrat. And so I was on the bad guy side twice. All of these people were trying to cook this country. by undermining not just the president-elect, but the republic. The American people chose Donald Trump in 2016, and they refused to respect that vote. So for me, the past 10 years has been kind of an eye-opening time when I came to realize that I was kind of a part of a bit of a couple of cults, one of them being the agency and one of them being the Democrat Party. My eyes are open now, but you're right. It was a very painful thing to recognize that I was part of a group where there are wonderful, wonderful people at the agency, even still, or the FBI doing incredible work. But when your tribal chiefs and the senior leadership are doing such horrific things, you gotta wonder how many people are really all in on this seditious conspiracy and the rest of your work. It makes you question a lot of things. So you're right. I have wondered a lot if I was on the right side of on the right team for a long time.
A little esoteric. I'd love to do, like, we should sit down for a long form podcast and chat about it sometime in person. I'd love that. Yeah. If you don't mind, some rapid fire things, just very quickly, based on what you just said. We asked Tulsi Gabbard about one of the more you call it a cult, one of the more cult-like activities of the CIA that was publicized during the Church Committee hearings during the 70s and 80s about Operation Mockingbird. And she sort of shocked the world, saying that it's still ongoing today, and that she's constantly catching agency heads or analysts or individuals inside of the deep state leaking to the press in order to try and craft a narrative to destroy the duly elected administration. I guess I'd want to ask you the same question. Did you ever encounter any sort of Operation Mockingbird activities?
Well, it's in the open press now. BBC One Radio sat down with the British intelligence service and our own at the very beginning of the Ukraine war, and they talked about how they were putting in press placements to encourage people in the West to support the war. So they acknowledged it. This was about 3 years ago. It's one of the things that I rang the bell on. Of like, this is so wrong. This is not how propaganda ops are supposed to work. You're not supposed to go after the American people with your CIA ops, obviously. So, beyond that, I didn't see any actually officially sanctioned operations, but that's a pretty big one, trying to change everybody's mind on the war in Ukraine through open propaganda. So, yeah, I think she's right.
Yeah, I mean, she said we're constantly having to shut this stuff down and catch people, and that is ongoing right now. It's ongoing. It's just unsanctioned, but it's ongoing, which is got to be really tough to. I mean, you're fighting yourself there, right?
Right. It's wrong.
Yeah.
You're not trying to use your intel agencies to manipulate your own people. That is the antithesis of what they're there to do.
Yes. One thing that has been very hot topic over the last month was Jeffrey Epstein, a CIA agent. What do you think about that? Or was he working with the CIA? Perhaps would be like, from a tertiary standpoint.
So one of the things that I have asked or encouraged people to think about is, why would he have been? What kind of access did he have? Did he have access to very important people, very important information, very important facilities? If the answer is yes, then he was absolutely on people's radars, whether that be the Israelis or a European service or the CIA. So from there, we can probably start to ask reasonable questions about the extent to which he did participate or assist. And we got Alex Acosta saying, back years ago during, I think it was 2019, he said to Congress that he couldn't go into further details about that relationship. So the point is, we've got a lot of very reasonable smoke. Do we have a fire? Well, let's see what gets revealed. But it's not crazy to suggest that he could have been. He certainly had the access to information and people. And we have that very curious statement by Alex Acosta. So it's fair to wonder.
Yeah, we asked the intel agency chairman yesterday on the show about it. And he said that he's going to ask. I mean, I just don't, everyone's asked every other law enforcement agency except for the CIA, which if you have a clandestine island in international waters, seems like it'd be a good CIA base to me. But again, what do I know? I just went to community college. What do I know?
You picked up something good, friend. Whatever you got, it's good.
I come from the hog fields of Iowa. I'm going to stick to the mud, Benny. Okay, so really quickly, muddying up the narratives is something that we've learned the CIA is capable of doing, and they've refused to acknowledge something about Lee Harvey Oswald up until just a few weeks ago, actually, when they acknowledged that they actually bumped Lee Harvey Oswald, made contact with him, were speaking with him before the assassination of JFK. And this is fascinating and interesting history. They've denied doing this for 60 years. Now they're copping to it. We learned that right here. Here are the documents. Obviously, you weren't around back then, and neither was I. But what does this tell you about the agency, and what was your reaction to this?
Well, I wasn't surprised in that he had Lee Harvey Oswald had a very long connection to the Soviets, to the Cubans. So it wasn't surprising to me that our Mexico-based officers bumped into him and tried to develop either a relationship, monitor him, surveil him, and the rest of it. So that in and of itself isn't super shocking. The question is, what were those additional conversations, if there were any? And I got to tell you, one of the things that I have always wondered, how much of this stuff actually got written down? Because there are operations where you never write things down. There is no paper trail. And those are for some of our more sensitive operations where you can't risk that you might have a tech op that blows open your access to your databases or whatnot. So there are ops that are off books. So how much of that conversation never got written down in terms of any connection to them, relationship with them, et cetera? I don't know, but I think it's fair to ask.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's a fascinating time period where there's a lot of disclosures actually happening. And what they did with JFK seems to be the gold standard. I mean, I'm sure we don't know everything, but we know so much more than we used to. And so many people, I don't know, it's a nice pressure release valve from my perspective. This transparency is great. I mean, people get so upset when they feel like their government's lying to them and when they feel like they've been told like a lie out in the open, right? It's not that we don't know, it's that we do know and we're going to tell you the opposite. And that's how you create pressure, and then doing these kind of disclosures and declassifications is how you release that. And I think it's good actually for our country.
Amen. Look, Tulsi Gabbard, I think, is doing very important work. So is Ratcliffe, and ultimately the president, in saying there are reasons why we need to keep some things classified. Completely fair. There are sources and methods that do need to be classified, but that can't be used to hide malbehavior. And that's what has happened for years and years. And so they're saying, knock it off with excuses. Even if we have to burn some sources or methods, we got to do it because we have to regain trust with the American people. And that's the moment in which we are living.
Yes. And the moment that we're living with the declassification of all this Obamagate stuff and all of this Steele dossier stuff and John Brennan, your old boss. What a creepy dude, man. What a lispy, creepy weirdo. And it's like, dude, how did guys like that? And then we found out this week they were going to put Adam Schiff in charge of the CIA. Oh my God. We dodged a bullet, bro.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Now, let's say a bomb. That wasn't just a bullet. That guy, he's about as sharp as a dull pencil on only his neck. The point is, can you imagine a guy like that being in charge of an intelligence agency, the cadre that's going out there and recruiting spies and stealing secrets? That guy leaking classified information. We now know he's leaking classified information just to damage Donald Trump. He ultimately is the one who politicized a lot of that intel that we saw in 2016 and 2017 and 2018 and beyond. Can you imagine him being in charge agency? Good Lord, all Friday.
Goodness gracious. Well, Brian Dean Wright, you can catch his op-ed. Here it is on Fox News, actually. Here's his op-ed, and we're also going to send you to his X account as well. And ladies and gentlemen, Brian Dean Wright right here on X. He's got himself almost 200,000 subscribers, and you got to be one of them. Is a man who clearly is willing to speak and speak freely and honestly. He's one of those guys who fights for you and brings a breadth of knowledge, and we hope that you'll be back whenever I have these questions. You seem to be a pretty good dude, man. So thanks a lot for joining the show.
Anytime.
Oh, man. All right. See ya.
All right. Be well.